John Northcott. It took a marathon meeting in Brussels, but European leaders have an agreement on a funding scheme to cover Ukraine's massive wartime deficit. Kyiv is getting 90 billion euros to keep it afloat for the next 2 years, but the loan will not be secured against frozen Russian assets. Crystal Gamansing reports from London.
And I'm very pleased to say we made it. Emerging from the 17-hour summit, Ursula von der Leyen, the European Union Commission President, detailed the new financial lifeline for Ukraine. Very important here, Ukraine would only need to pay back the loan once it receives reparations, 90 billion euros as promised. In the end, European leaders abandoned a much-touted idea to fund Ukraine with Russian frozen state assets, a move Russia fought against, threatening retribution. Hungary's leader Viktor Orban was against that idea and is against the loan, borrowing against the EU budget.
It looks like a loan, but of course the Ukrainians will never be able to pay it back.
Well, the thing is that it's a great news for us from all respects.
Alexander Mereshko, chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Ukrainian parliament, says his country was in such a desperate situation, they're happy to just have the money. They still feel Russian frozen assets should be turned over to Ukraine, but understand some countries have concerns requiring more time.
We continue to hope, we continue to fight.
In his year-end news conference, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Ukraine doesn't want peace. His position, Russia will end the war if the root causes for his full-scale invasion are addressed. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
U.S. authorities say they have found the suspect in last Saturday's mass shooting at Brown University dead. Investigators also linked the 48-year-old to the killing of an MIT professor 2 days later. Massachusetts U.S. Attorney Leah Foley says police discovered the body in a storage facility.
At approximately 9 p.m., federal agents breached a storage locker in Salem, New Hampshire, in search of Claudio Neves Valente, a Portuguese national we believed shot and killed 2 Brown University students and an MIT professor in Brookline, Massachusetts. Federal agents found Neves Valente dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
That facility sits about 120 kilometers from the Brown University campus in Providence. Police traced Neves Valente's rental car to the site, and while he attended the school as a grad student in the year 2000, officials say he had no current ties to the university. Investigators still searching for a motive in the attack that left 2 people dead and 9 others wounded. There's a new and growing nationalist club in this country. It's called Second Sons Canada. On its face, the club is focused on Canadian history, celebrating veterans and encouraging fitness. But that public image obscures its leaders' radical beliefs. Christian Poslang and our visual investigations team have been digging into the group.
Race war is here. Second Sons Vice President Alex Friend says racial conflict is underway in Canada. You may have seen Second Sons marching in the streets, masked, in Niagara, London, Ottawa, or Regina. The group pitches itself as a men's nationalist club, reviewing Canadian history and tradition. But Friend says the group welcomes neo-Nazis in its ranks.
We do have National Socialist members.
CBC's visual investigations team dug through hundreds of hours of audio and video from personal live streams published by the group's leaders to see what it really represents. Among the hundreds of instances of violent rhetoric, anti-Semitism, and racial slurs, one key idea they push: remigration, an innocuous term that hides its violent intent. Here's Second Sons President Jeremy McKenzie.
Get in the truck. We're going to the airport. Make me. Okay. Hey, anybody else?
Stephen Ray is an analyst with the Institute for Strategic Dialogue.
Remigration for Second Sons is a euphemism for ethnic cleansing.
He warns that the group pushes narratives about tradition, history, and heritage to attract recruits.
The intent behind that is to essentially create this big front door. All the while, behind the scenes, the leaders of the group want to actually indoctrinate these people into a more extremist worldview, a more hardcore way of thinking.
Second Sons was only founded in 2024, but it's grown rapidly since then. They say over 2,000 people have applied, with chapters across the country. Christian Poslang, CBC News, Toronto.
And to learn more about Second Sons Canada and read the full story from CBC's Visual Investigations team, go to cbcnews.ca. A new study finds that a 2021 mandate from the Ontario government is saving lives. Researchers looking into the policy's impact in long-term care homes say the results come down to one specific factor: air conditioning. Lisa Schick reports.
It was a necessary undertaking.
Geriatrician Nathan Stahl on investigating the effects of Ontario's decision to mandate air conditioning in all residents' rooms in long-term care homes.
This was a particular concern, not only because of these repeat events that continue to occur with greater frequency and intensity, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, residents were not able to congregate.
During the pandemic in 2021, CBC News was the first to ask Ontario Premier Doug Ford why AC wasn't mandatory in nursing home rooms, resulting in the province requiring it be installed by spring of 2023. Does that mean you would consider amending the act?
I'm going to move forward with this. We're going to move forward rapidly.
Stahl's subsequent study found residents in homes without AC had an 8% higher odds of dying on extreme heat days compared with residents of homes with AC, and using a simulation based on this information found the policy change averted 33 resident deaths.
A $200 million investment for the province of Ontario. It's important to understand the return on investment that was made, which is very clear and it's life-saving.
York University Professor Emeritus Pat Armstrong and long-term care researcher says other provinces need to pay attention.
Just like heating, we need food. You can die from the heat as well as you can die from the cold.
She says a clear indication air conditioning is no longer a luxury. Lisa Shim, CBC News, Toronto.
New Brunswick's local government watchdog is sounding the alarm on closed-door meetings. The Commission says too many towns are disciplining mayors and councillors privately, and that's against the law. Erica Butler has more on the push to bring those complaints into the public eye.
Everything was done, behind closed doors.
Andy McGregor says he couldn't believe it when he went to a closed meeting shortly after being elected, only to find out the meeting was called to discuss a complaint against him. The local governance commission later determined that the complaint was not handled properly, but the former councillor from the municipality of Strait Shores said he would have welcomed public scrutiny.
When there's people watching, we love to be transparent, accountable, and we're just held to a higher standard. So these things should always be conducted in a public forum.
The commission says many municipalities have been incorrectly treating their elected mayors and councillors as employees and citing HR confidentiality in handling complaints against them. Jeff Martin teaches politics at Mount Allison University. He calls the advisory disruptive and almost courageous in light of a trend away from openness and transparency in municipal politics.
It's refreshing that someone says very clearly municipal councillors are not employees, and that the mayors and councils and the staff cannot just expand what they are allowed and not allowed to discuss in public.
The city of Moncton is one of many local governments in New Brunswick that has been holding code of conduct proceedings in private. This week, the city started the process to change its bylaw, citing the advice of the commission. Erica Butler, CBC News, Moncton.
And finally, TikTok's parent company ByteDance now has a deal to sell its U.S. operations to American investors. The agreement aims to end national security concerns by moving control of the app to U.S. firms. Denise Sidari explains.
The U.S. side of TikTok will see controlled, sold, and transferred to American investors by January 22nd. That deal is now signed, according to a memo seen by both the Associated Press and Reuters. Reports indicate that memo says both TikTok and ByteDance, the video app's parent company, have agreed that a little under half of a new joint venture will be owned by three U.S. companies: MGX, Silver Lake, and Oracle. That's a tech company controlled by Trump ally Larry Ellison. Just under 20% of this new TikTok company will stick with the current owner, China-based ByteDance. The TikTok app had been banned during the Biden administration over national security concerns tied to Chinese ownership. The first Trump administration had expressed similar concerns, but this time around, Trump kept postponing cutting off the app. Under this deal, reports say the algorithm, that's the program that controls what people see on TikTok, will be reconfigured based on U.S. data. Denise Sidari, CBC News, Calgary.
And that is.
All right, shalom, Tente Gesharallah. Kal Yimla Al-Hayanawa Yahawa Bahashem Yahawashai Bahashem Bakaha Kodash. My name is Gabalka, with the election. All right, from the Cabinet Province in Toronto. 1 second. Select 1 second. Thank you for that. Yeah, I also want to say that the elders, the rule of the kind of worthy of double honors, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine, which are the Presbyterian of Graham Millstone, beginning with the elder apostles, the elder bishops, and the elders on down. I also want to say peace and salutation to all you who came on the highways and byways to continue to preach his truth in honesty and in sincerity, and in the favor names of Yahweh while Yahweh Shai. All right. So going into it, this is our early morning news report. I just heard from the from the CBC radio there. There's things happening. There's a couple of things there that that come to mind, right? That I mentioned, like which all these things as you see, it's only if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, so everything's clear to see that everything that's basically leading towards the time of Jacob's trouble, a time like never before. Okay, in the news article there, they mentioned, the first thing they mentioned was, the thing between Ukraine and Russia, right? Basically, how Ukraine is being funded by the West and these other European countries, and it's actually going to they're funding so much to where Ukraine will not be able to pay it back. And like ultimately, the citizens are going to have to bear the brunt of the cost of the war, like they always do, right? So here it is, Ukraine, is always asking for money, from the West, from Europe, to fund, its military, its to get weapons to fight against Russia. Okay, and it's ultimately bleeding people. Okay, people are the ones that the people are the ones that are going to be, to basically end up with the bag, holding the bag as far as the debt. Okay, ultimately this is how Edom intends to, to have the world in perpetual debt unto him, right? To where you can never pay it back. So therefore, you remain a perpetual slave. So basically, that's what they're trying the Ukraine into, right? Giving it, they're funding all this money. So ultimately, to where they're not be able to pay back. But also, these are losing. These are war that they're losing, but they still continue fighting it. Ultimately, it's going to come to a point where Russia does not appreciate it anymore. Okay, and actually retaliates. All right. And also another thing too that I mentioned, the whole thing about like you know um the race wars, right? That's another thing too that I heard. The race wars coming. You have this here in Canada. There's a group known as Second Sons. Second Sons, they basically, it's like a white nationalist group, and they're seeking to basically, to cleanse, you know, the population, so to speak, to basically, reverse immigration and send these migrants back to where they came from. Okay, and ultimately, they're coming against, them Jays, the Yahoo people are coming against, of course, the so-called blacks, right, and the other brown people, and ultimately this is going to lead to also going to time of Jacob trouble. Okay, to the royal icon in the Hebrew, it's going to be a little time to where, once all hell breaks loose, these people will not have, you know, um, these people will basically, will not be able to, get basically protection from the government. The police will not be there anymore. This is going to be like an all-out war. Okay, when all hell breaks loose, it's going to be race wars, like you always talk going to it. In scriptures, how the Most High is going to raise the sons of Greece against the sons of Jacob. Okay, the Grecians being a so-called white race, and Jacob being the so-called blacks, Latinos and Native Americans. All right, in time of race wars, which all these ties into Jacob's trouble. There's also going to be Esau's trouble. All right. Nothing too that they touched on was you know what's the next one? I'm passing my mind right now, but basically those two things that come to my mind, like, and I thought it was curious. to show you that basically, that times we're coming into is going to be a time like never before, right? A time of great distress, a time of great persecution, right? So it's supposed to be getting a man ready for these things. Okay, trust in Yahweh Shai to deliver us and to be with us all the way through and through, right? I'll grab a few scriptures, but my other phone is now on me, but I'll quote a few scriptures. The first being basically, time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, that's Jeremiah 30 verse 7. All right. Another tells you, in that Daniel's 12th chapter, the first verse, that the Most High Jonah said, Michael the archangel to fight, for the elect's sake. Okay, it says, then shall Michael the archangel stand up, right? That's Daniel 12 verse 1. Basically, and the worst was being, the rest was coming in. Okay, you have Russia, Gog and Magog is gonna, the Most gonna put hooks into their jaws and turn their back and basically put an evil thought in your mind to where they're gonna come against America, Babylon the Great. Okay, the bear's gonna come against the great whore, right? Ultimately, destroyed by nuclear destruction. So these are the times we're living into, man. This is the other day even Trump declares, that Trump said that the World War III is near. Okay, so the sentiments out there, man. Ultimately, the Third World War. That's going to be that's going to be I want to say basically the climax of Jacob Trouble, the Third World War. All right, so be ready for that, man. So then we're going in there. I said, Barata Yahweh, Barata Yahweh Shai. So come, Mashallah, wa abad babal. Shalom, shalom, alaikum.